BRUCAST is back, baby.
This BRUCAST episode is brought to you by the BRUCAST Store. Explore a store filled with awesome goodies from hoodies to t-shirts to mugs. We've got you covered. Stay in style with BRUCAST. Embrace the shock, set the trend. Visit now brew-cast.com/store. Link below.
Back with the fire, can't you see the flames? From Deutschland steps comes the BRUCAST name. Voices like thunder breaking all the chains. Unleash the fury like a runaway train.
Alright, hi everyone, welcome back to another BRUCAST episode. If it's your first time watching the show, make sure to like and subscribe. If you're listening to Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please rate the show 5 stars. This will ensure that the podcast recommends to even more people and allow me to keep doing what I love. BRUCAST also on Instagram, X, and TikTok, where I upload shorts with the highlights of the show. So follow now, BRUCAST on Instagram, X, and TikTok. Links in the description below.
Back here we thrive, we survive.
Hey there, BRUCAST fans. Welcome back to another BRUCAST episode. If it's your first time watching the show, please make sure to comment, like, and subscribe. Subscribe and subscribe. Guys, it's very important. I want to see everyone subscribing. And leave a comment. I'm going to read all of your comments. So, yeah, without further ado, let's welcome our guest of the day. His name is Daniel Faust. How are you doing, my friend?
I am doing well.
Welcome. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you for letting me stay on. First time I've been in this new experience of apps, so we'll have a new comfortable experience with that.
All right, Daniel. So before anything, what about introduce yourself for the audience?
I'm Daniel Faust. I am an Air Force veteran. I served 25 years, 12 years active duty, 13 years of service, just recently retired. And we have a goal to do military ministry and serve the military community from the prayer room to the boardroom. That is our heart and our goal. So we are growing those opportunities as we speak. And we do that through speaking, teaching, and podcasting pretty much.
Wow. So I need to ask you, since you mentioned Air Force, right? So we get this out of the way right away. What do you know about aliens, man?
You said agents? Is that what you said?
Aliens.
Aliens. I can't say if they exist or non-exist. I know we have aliens in the United States in the sense of green card people. I know those ones. But outside of that, no, I don't know anything about aliens or Area 51. So
Never encountered any UFOs or anything like that. Never heard any stories.
no, not at all. I've experienced some unidentified people before, but not any real alien or flying objects. I think the biggest thing I've ran into is maybe drones. People fly around the base, which they're not supposed to. You know, like when civilians fly their drones over airspace. That's the closest of the unidentified flying object I've ever found.
Oh, okay. I'm a little bit disappointed because
Yeah.
I mean, you probably heard very recently, if I'm not mistaken, last week, Donald Trump, Obama, they all are touching on the subject, right? It all started with Obama just stating very clearly, aliens are real, they are out there, they're just not at Area 51, and then Trump the same week just said, Obama is not meant to declassify that. It's not meant to say that, you know. So implying that it's true. So what's going on? You know, I don't know.
Yeah, I think they have access to stuff that I did not. So if they do exist, maybe we'll find out one day. But if it's money driven, we're not going to figure it out. So if that particular card, or if it's going to cause anything else. So if you ever get to see one, I could say you take a photo, break out your iPhone, and then we'll discuss it then. But for me, in my easy life, yeah, I didn't see any aliens, but I've met some weird people before.
All right. I wouldn't be doing my podcaster role if I didn't ask. So we got that out of the way.
Oh yeah, of course.
All right, Daniel. So besides your work on the Air Force, so I saw, you know, on your Podmatch profile, you are all about the scripture, marriage, and God, and how to surrender to God. Those are things that you preach, right?
Yeah, we go over do that and teach. So I'm not technically a pastor. I'm just a Christian that goes over and wants to spread that message to learn how to surrender your mess and learn how to have a thriving marriage, because our marriage almost got destroyed because I didn't surrender and I didn't deal with my mess. So that has grown throughout the years. And I think as we as Americans, we have the beautiful thing to go over and have freedom of speech. So I didn't get to truly have that for 25 years. I always had to be apolitical, really couldn't be Democratic, really couldn't be Republican, couldn't be conservative, couldn't be liberal, it couldn't really be anything. So now that I'm out to help those veterans at least be able to thrive in those ways, the one universal thing that we all struggle with is with our marriages and our families. So, but we teach it in Christ's way because we believe that's the best way, because everything else kind of doesn't stick. And we've done a ton of those things and it didn't stick. And even when I was a non-Christian and an atheist studying Wiccan for a while in my teen years, it doesn't stick, it doesn't last, and it's just a lie. So for us, we try to go over and teach the truth of what we lived in. And if people want to join us, great. If they don't, then they still have that freedom of choice.
So what is different that you guys do?
We just stick to the scriptures, and we just found out that when you surrender to Christ and give your life to him and allow him to be the author and perfecter of your life, instead of you trying to take control and to clench your fist like this, it doesn't go over and work like when you try to go over and try to control everything. That's the thing, is just letting go of control. And it's like if I tried to control this podcast and you had technical difficulty and I said, oh, because you had technical difficulty, I'm canning this thing and everything else. Is that edifying? Is that loving? No, I can't control that. My autistic side wants to have that side of control and be like, this is the way structure works and everything else. But the thing of the matter is once you give it to God, it's actually better. It's like, what opportunities do we get to go over and get when we take full control and everything? We're supposed to be stewarding things, not just taking control. So my wife is a stewardship of relationship. My kids are a stewardship of relationship. This podcast is a stewardship of relationship instead of trying to take control. And we can see that a lot in marriages. We're actually starting a new class that we have. It's a 6-week class called the Military Marriage Reset. It's learning how to go break out of control. Because when you bring control in a marriage and you're not surrendered, you're destroying your spouse. Typically, it's males having control issues, destroying their lovely wives because they don't feel emotionally and spiritually and psychologically safe. And then the gap just widens. And you wonder why 70 to 80% of women pursue divorce. They don't feel emotionally, transactionally safe. So when you surrender to God and allow God to be that authority, and you're just stewarding the resources and the people and the time that you have, it births more freedom. So that's what I would say is the difference in that particular regard is that.
All right, all right. So by bringing God into the mix, letting go of control, because otherwise you're just creating tension. That's my interpretation, right? Like by creating control, you're creating tension in the marriage. All suddenly things just work better.
They do. And I took control for a long time, tried to control everything from the sex and the money and the connection, the relationship and the time and what we were doing and everything else for like 7 years. And I thought if I just keep clenching harder, things are going to work. And it didn't. And then we were at the brink of divorce, June 1st of 2014 because of those things. And my wife graciously and righteously, spiritually kicked me in the you-know-where during that time when I threatened divorce. Depending on the audience, I don't say the full gamut, it's like, so, but she went over and showed me on how I was just being the emotional a-hole, which is the nicest word I could say on any format. And because of that, I had to really start going through my mess. What am I dealing with mentally, emotionally, socially, spiritually, and sexually? What am I not giving to God and not surrendering? And why am I doing those things? And that's when the transformation changed. It wasn't instant. It took about 5 years to really start living that out. And now we're starting to practice that out. And now we're trying to cultivate that out and saying, like, what was God teaching us during that season? And then how we can help others learn that. Because a lot of us, we allow our past to dictate our present. I'll give you a perfect example. When I was a kid, my brother died, drowning accident. I took that drowning accident and then cut off all relationships in a lot of ways, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and everything else. I said F you to Jesus and then went over and became a Wiccan. And now all my interactions, my worldview from the prayer room to the boardroom, didn't matter who I was hanging out with, became that way. And then that spilled even when I became a Christian and was married with a couple kids at the time in that particular regard. And we do that each and every day. Whatever hurts, hangups, and hiccups that we go through, if we don't surrender that to God, that's going to become our worldview. It doesn't matter if you have a faith or not. Any brokenness undealt with becomes trauma, and then it becomes drama. And when you go over and you try to just psychologically figure it out, you can change the deck chairs. I went to counseling many different ways. I went through spiritual counseling, I went through psychological counseling, I went through the Veterans Affairs. When you and those things can work for a season, but if you don't have transformational of the lie that you believed, like my brother's death, it's like I believe that I was rejected and dejected and I can't have relationships. My one soul best relationship, which was my brother, now defines every relationship, and I'm always comparing. And then I carry that and I don't go forth that lie that God does love me, God does accept me. He kept me here to teach the world better relationships, because I asked him that time. And when I was deployed, I'm like, why did you keep me here? Why'd you keep me here? My brother was the better asset in a sense, and he was the better. Like, my brother was the physically talented one, my sister was the mentally talented one, and I consider myself the leftovers. And again, that's another lie that I'm believing. So I'm carrying that from the prayer room to the boardroom. And unfortunately, we bring it the most within the bedroom as our spouse and our kids. So bedroom, living room gets the most of our junk. We tend to go into the boardroom on the podcast and be like, oh, Bru's going to be embarrassed if I go tell him who I am, so I'm going to hide and mask and everything else. But on my spouse, which is the most interconnected, I'm like, spew, 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 spew. And it's like, I'm sorry, we should technically spew more on strangers than we should spew on friends. And we definitely shouldn't be spewing as much on our spouses and our loved ones, but we do it backwards on a constant basis. So that's where it comes from, and that's what we're hoping to teach the world in that particular regard, and to bring those connections back. And we solely focus on the people group we love the most, which is the military veterans and first responders, because that's our community. So that's what it is in a nutshell, is to go over and to live that out.
Sounds like a noble mission. I mean, those like one of the things that bring the most fulfillment to any human being are the relationships. It's a fact that's one of the things that bring us the most joy and fulfillment. And if you don't get that figured out, I mean, you're probably gonna suffer.
Yeah, you definitely do in that particular regard. And the funny thing is it's our marriages, and we think, oh, well, we can just live in a cohabitation in a divorced world, and blended marriages are beautiful if they come again, but like that was never the intention. Those vows that came out, even though they're kind of secularized, better for worse, sickness and health until death do us part, it's a covenantal bond that God has with his creation and what he has in marriage, and then that outpours over, because you can usually know if the coworker is married and they had a conflict with their spouse. They're not going to give you the full gamut at work, but you're going to see the scars of it at work, and vice versa. Like, not to get too crass, but if someone's having great intimacy and they're a little too happy, you're like, something happened at home. And you usually know that thing, because it's even metabolically and chemically and everything else, you're just a better person when you're intimate and together. When you're distant and apart, you can tell the difference. You don't even have to know. Be like, yeah, that person is not having fun at home.
Yeah, you can tell.
Yeah, and usually it's usually out of nothing. They come into work, I'm like, what has happened to you? And if they can't really say anything, you kind of know. And then vice versa, that if they're really happy all of a sudden and they become consistently happy, you're wondering why. And there's an outpouring of that. So we carry it no matter what. So why not go work it out through all the places, but do it in the right way. I can't just go have a better relationship with you as a coworker or as a podcaster. That can do all day, but if I go over and if my kid's stressing me out and we're distant, or if it's my spouse we're distant at, or intimacy is now at this space instead of this space, it's not like the relationship with me at work is gonna be like, yep, that makes everything. And we try to do that. We try to shore the grade, even when we're in that mix, when our relationships are kind of broken. We kind of like, oh, I'm just going to feed into my work. I'm going to feed into my hobbies or feed into something else. It doesn't feed the soul. It really doesn't. It can do for a moment, but it's got to be an outpouring. And that's the thing I did wrong the entire time. I tried to do what we do. We as Americans and probably in the world do it wrong. Get the boardroom right. Get the life at work right. I'll make that 6-figure. I'll get my boss. I'll get through this season. I'll get through this project. And after that, we'll get our relationship better. I'm like, it still sucks. The next day, you get through another project and they're like, Timmy, great job on that project. I know you didn't give you anything, but I got like 3 more projects for you. I don't even want to do well because I did well and I got more. And I'm like, so why we over focus on that? And what here is what we do at Learn and Live in the overall ministry stuff that we go over and do is we want you to focus your most amount of energy in the best place with your Heavenly Father, with your heavenly spouse. It's not always heavenly, of course, but 2 humans that we came together. And then also our kids, and then outpour to that community. Because then it carries. Because if my countenance carries, from there, you're going to want to know why. Compared to, I got my boardroom all straight, but my relationships at home are totally bombing. My finances are in the hole, and I'm about to become homeless. Want to follow me? No.
But it's tricky, man. Like, let's say now like you need to balance all of those things out in order to have a healthy, purposeful life. Even then, it's like you're juggling so many plates at once. It requires mastery. That's the right word, Requires skill and tech. That's hard work, man.
Well, that's why you don't balance out. It's not a balance out. It's an outpouring. So
Outpouring,
imagine my
okay.
cup I've been drinking out of. If I have a cup that never overflows, and I'm just using maybe this much water, sorry, get the visual right. And then I pour a little into my marriage, and I pour a little into my kids, and then I get to work and pour into this. Now I have nothing left if something else goes over and asks, and that's why balance doesn't work. I have to get overflow from my Heavenly Father first, His resources, His energy, His love, His mercy, His grace, and then I can pour that overflow into my marriage and into my family. And I'm not pouring out of myself. And that's the difference. If you go over and just try to take a cup that never gets filled and you're trying to fill it, you have to have a source where it's getting filled and overflowed. Colorado River, for example, I lived down there a long time ago in the Arizona area. They borrowed, I think, 1.6 million acres of water for Arizona, but Arizona really never had any water to begin with. So if Colorado runs out, Arizona runs out. And that's the same thing that happens in our relationship. I'm going to keep pouring out of my cup. And then you get to like, I'm empty. What do I do? And that's where we get burnout because we're not getting filled from the source. But as long as the Colorado River is available as that source to Arizona, then Arizona can continue get flowing water and river. They actually don't use enough now, so they had to get cut off a bit. Like I remember in the news, they came back, they're like, yep, we're taking back another 1 million acres of water. Like what? Like, yeah, we're not using it. We had such an overflow of water that we didn't even need it. So they took it back. God never does that. God never takes the overflow and takes it back in that particular regard. So that's the difference in that particular regard. You don't go and just try to balance the cup. You're never going to be able to. Something's going to go get shafted, but you do the overflow. So there were seasons when my marriage was rough. I'm not volunteering at work. I am doing just the minimal at the job because if my cup's not overflowing, then why am I going to go over and give? There's sacrifice, of course, but I have to make sure that I'm in my prayer closet getting well, that my family is good, my wife is doing well, and then my kids are doing well, and then I can overflow into the rest. We don't always all have to be heroes. Altruistic is great, serving out of that. But if you serve out of the Lord and that overflow, that's when the gifting is different. That's why you can usually tell someone's like, yeah, they're doing it because work requires it. Hey, they're doing it because it makes them look good. It's for the promotion or anything else. But when you see that person truly serving, like you're asking like, are you doing this to get something out of it? I've been doing this for 12 years. Do you really think I got something out of it? Nope. I did it because of you, because I wanted to love on you. I didn't do it because of just for XYZ reward. Now, if God blesses a reward with that service, great. But we always say this at Learn and Live, and I've said this my entire mostly life. No matter if I'm a dollaire or a billionaire, I'm still going to go over and serve. It doesn't matter my financial status. It's based on what God has called me into be, and then I pour. So, because we've been almost homeless a few times and we still continue to serve, but we were overflowed by eternal resources, not temporal resources like money, because you can make money like that. A sponsor picks you up, boom, you're going to be upgrading software and everything else. If I go get a sponsor, I'm just going to be super happy and I'm going to quit my job. But those things goes in ebbs and flows. So it's God's resources that last the most, and that's the most important, and that's what we teach.
I see. Wow. I really like that he used the water analogy. Do you remember Bruce Lee's quote, "Be the water, my friend"? He used to say that. And I really like the word source. I know people who pray and have a direct, like, I don't like, what I'm going with this is they call God source. That's the term that they use. And the first time I heard, I was like, what are you saying? You're talking about God? It's like, yeah, I just call it source. It's my source. And I heard you using again, and I think it makes perfectly sense, especially when you're tidying up with the water analogy that I never heard before. It's really cool.
Yeah, we come from the source of the gospel and the Bible and Jesus Christ. I'm not sure where they come from, but yes, it has to be a source that doesn't run out, a source that's everlasting in that regard. So for us, God of the Bible and Jesus Christ is that source that lasts and everlasting. Because I've walked in all those different types of faiths before, and they can help you spiritually for a season. I practiced Wiccan for a while. I was agnostic. I went to different types of churches and whatnot and everything else. But for me, it has to be a personal relationship. So he is that ultimate source. And that's why I can continue to pour. And even in the dry seasons of life, we've had our ups and downs. Like right now, I'm unemployed. It's been 5 weeks. God's still providing. I had a tax return check come in a couple weeks early, have a couple other financial resources coming in and whatnot. And he's allowing me to go and serve, even though right now I'm clicking on 5 to 10 jobs a day. I got denied trash collecting. How do you get denied a trash collecting job? I mean, seriously, it's not that hard. High school diploma, know how to lift, throw stuff in a trash can. They're like, you're not qualified. I'm like, I have an equivalency of a master's degree and I can't get a trash collector job. But it also shows on how God is so sovereign and so good, because I'm like, would I have been used as well as being a trash collector? I'm like, yay, I got a trash collector job, $17 an hour. Am I going to be overflowing with God in that particular regard, or am I going to be flowing with trash? And then I'm bringing that where I'm at. So it's definitely providential in that particular regard. And again, that's the thing. The difference is that we teach, no matter what the season is that's the blessing of that. I still have breath in my lungs. That's a blessing. I get to go wake up in the morning. It's a blessing. I'm able to get on this podcast. It's a blessing. I'm able to have fresh water. It's a blessing.
Mm-hmm. Wow, you got denied the trash collector. But I mean, they cannot even use the AI excuse because AI is coming after your jobs. No, that's not even that's not even the case. Oh wow. That's insane, man. Yeah, so one of the topics that you mentioned is also the sexually, right? You need to heal the sexual aspect, and one
Yeah.
ways. How do you bring God into that? I'm still confused.
So most people come with three universal interpretations of sex, and this was taught by Pastor Mark Driscoll out of Arizona. Sex is a god, sex is gross, and sex is a gift. When we take sex as a god, it becomes the idol of our marriage, and that's all we focus on. And if the sex ain't good, our marriage ain't good. If we have the sex is gross, I'm avoiding it, I'm minimizing it, I'm only doing it for procreation purposes, I'm having kids. Sex is a gift. When you come from that mentality, you're realizing God gave us intimacy and a blessing of a gift. There's 8,000 nerves on the woman's regional area. We don't have to go too crass. And the men go over and get stimulated all from the outside and everything else. That is amazing, because if I went over and had that many senses anywhere else, I'd be overloaded, in that particular regard. Just that alone, and be able to go over, and we're the only creatures that have intimacy face to face compared to like front to back or whatever directions all the other animals do. So we are getting connected into me see. So we teach it from actually understanding your sexual personality style. So if whatever personality style you are, you have sexual wants, needs, and desires based on that style. And then we break that down. So, but you have to first figure out like where does the couple sit at? Because if both of them sit sex is God, well, then they're idolizing and everything else. And everything else that comes to the factor, we're going to use sex as the glue to heal it. Sex is a great bonder, but it's not glue. If we come from two sexes gross, we're avoiding each other. We're kind of like roommates and everything else. And then if you have both sex as a gift, that means you're both appreciating, you're both serving one another, you're both being sacrificial to one another in that particular regard. But if you have the opposite, like one believes in one and believes in the other, you have to fix the belief system first, even before you get into personality style. I can go tell you that, like, hey, your spouse might be looking for accuracy in the bedroom and accuracy throughout the day before you go over and connect with them, and compared to wham bam thank you ma'am. You know, some people are that way, they're wired that way. And the thing is that you learn to go adjust those styles, but until you deal with the fundamental belief of where you sit on what sex is in your life, because you got taught from a very religious staunch version, you could have been taught sex is gross, you're only going to have that when you go to get married, you're going to have your two kids, and you just cut it off. I'm like or vice versa, it's like do it until you die. And I'm like, oh, we're not animals. Those are the type of songs that go over and talk about that. But if you appreciate it as a gift and you both have that, then you can get into how to make it the best with that gift. So that's where we primarily teach it from. It's a great book called Body and Soul. So it's not, I didn't create this model. I just talked to the guy a long time ago because the book didn't sell much. And that's the funniest thing. We have a lot of great wisdom from Christians and non-Christians alike. So yeah, Body and Soul. It is by, let's see, I'm trying to remember the name.
Frank Conroy.
I'd have to see if it's that one. It's a 1990s book. I think no, that's that one. No, it's an older book on Amazon. So maybe if you go to the Amazon browser, you could find it because it's easier to find. I don't have the ISBN memorized. It's I'm trying to remember the author's name. I got permission from him, but
Lisa Will.
yeah. If you type Body and Soul sexual personality styles, you maybe find it more accurately in that too, guard. Because it's, there you go, second book. The one right there, that one right there. Yep. It was a 1990s book that I read, and it just changed my life because I became a certified behavioral consultant. And I contacted back Colkin, and I said, this is a great book. I said, is there a way I can go teach on it? He's like, I'm not even focusing on that anymore. He said, you can teach as much as you want. So I give kudos to them when I go over and teach and everything else, but it's basically coming out of that model and everything else that you learn about your personality style. Now you learn it from a sexual style, so you know how to go serve your spouse and serve them well.
That sounds helpful. I had a guest once. Oh man, I forgot his name. I'm sorry. But his whole deal was your partner is like a music instrument, and every new partner that you meet is like a completely different musical instrument, and you need to learn how to play it because we are all different in bed. And if you're not interested in learning how to play that instrument, in other words, you're kind of not interested in serving your partner, pleasing their partner, making them happy in a way.
Yeah. And that's the hard part too, is when we go in this world now, we think we can just grab a bunch of instruments. There's very rare people that know how to play multiple instruments well. Typically, you become a guitarist or you become a pianist or you become whatever it is. And then there, marriage is supposed to be the same way, is that you're just learning in the sense that one person. Our book, Leave No Marriage Behind, we talk about you need to get your doctorate degree in your spouse. A doctorate degree takes 8 to 10 years, and you're a continuously learning student. So when you go do that, you're going to learn some amazing things. Like an intimacy looks way differently from year 1 than it does year 20 where I'm at. And I've learned, God willing and blessingly, that the instruments that we both have in the bedroom, it's a lot sweeter than it was in year 1. Because if you learn how to play a harmonica in year 1, you're going to really suck at it. But if you practice for 20 years, you're going to be really well at it in that particular garden, and it just gets better. That's why you see artists go over and can be 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years in and still appreciate it. We need to appreciate our spouses like art, that it's always evolving, always changing, always growing, always learning in that particular garden. When we try to go jump in and say, okay, I don't get this instrument. I'm gonna go jump in a new instrument in Neptune guard. You're still carrying all the stuff that you learned from the past in that instrument. And it's like you're carrying that with you. God can heal that. Like there's people that have gone through divorces and get married again, and there's healing in Neptune guard. But you're still carrying that with you. So we believe it's supposed to be until death, not until it's like inconvenient, unimportant. Oh, it doesn't fit my needs and everything else. I can change my heart and fit your needs if I choose to. That's called sacrifice. And that's a foreign language in itself in our culture nowadays. We don't know how to sacrifice. And it's for the betterment of not just of that person, but the betterment for the marriage in itself. That marriage is more than just going over and just sexual compatibility. Come on. Well, everybody's got all the same parts. It's really not that complicated. I mean, and we get into that. It's like, I'm not compatible. Like, what? Did you get wrong parts? Are you Legos? Did you? I mean, it's really simple in that regard. It's so complex of the person, yes. But like, I've never understood that. I mean, I try to relate to other people's mindsets. I'm like, okay, I could go over and see that. But honestly, I'm like, they all work the same overall, generally speaking. Yes, there's sexual pain, frustration, there's other medical issues. Yes, you got to deal with that. But on a bar none. Not much difference. Not much difference.
Well, women are very emotional. Like there's they say that for women when they cheat is usually speaking related to emotions, right? That they're cheating because they have some type of they fell in love. That's what I'm getting at. And
Yeah.
men, no, they're just horny, you know. So I think by nature we're meant not to understand each other in a way. So that's.
I mean, it's learning both. It's like if I want to really please my spouse, I need to connect with their heart first, as the man to a woman, and then the woman's connecting with the man. That we become more emotionally vulnerable when we're physically satisfied. And that's how we connect. There's a lot of podcasters talking about nowadays. What is the recent one? It's like, hey, I'm going to become my husband's HOR. And I'm like, okay, that's a spin. But she was pulling to the point that she's like, I'm learning to go over and to serve him. He doesn't need to get in any other place except for me. I can be sacrificial and I can go over and serve. And then as the male biologically is going over and getting connected, no, that's not horizontal. It means like a actual whore. Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, I meant, yeah, I don't know your audience, so I don't try to be too crass. I don't need the language, but in that particular regard. But basically, long story short, is that because when we look for sex outside of marriage, we'll do whatever. It's amazing to me. But then once you get married, I'm like, I'm not doing that with him, or I'm not doing that with her. Why? You did it everything else when you were unmarried. Our cultures pay for it, our cultures hide for it. We do the shack up, we do the Tinder swipes, we do those types of things. But once we get into an intimate, covenantal relationship, I'm not willing to do that. Again, it's just from my mind, it doesn't make sense. I should be willing to sacrifice to pleasure my spouse, to go and love on my spouse, not just sexually, but mentally, emotionally, socially, spiritually, in that particular regard, because she's my other half. She's my puzzle piece. And I get to be part of that beautiful tapestry of that puzzle. So, yeah. So let's go over and do more kinky stuff in the bedroom when you're married and keep the kinky stuff out of the bedroom before you get married. I think culturally and world-wise, that's why we struggle. We try to do things that God's not ordained yet. That's the one thing that people get. Sex is a beautiful thing. It was just meant for the confines of marriage. It wasn't meant for just to try before you buy. You know, it's not a commodity. It's a human being. It's a soul. They have proven that we get biologically, psychologically, socially, and we can't prove spiritually, but we get connected and bonded when we have that intimacy. No other animal goes over and does that. Only an image bearer of God does that. That's why it hurts. You don't get broke up in a relationship like, yeah, that's cool, fine, whatever. You know, if you're already broken and jaded, that happens. But typically, it still even hurts the dude. Maybe not as much as the lady, but it does, because you have now done one of the most sacred things that you could have in this world is intimacy.
Daniel, you need to go into a quick sponsor break. You're gonna be right back. Parents, have you been searching for an app that's both fun and educational for your kids? I've got something exciting to share with you today. It's called FunTastic Plus. FunTastic Plus is a free app where education meets entertainment, designed specially for children ages 2 to 12. It's built by experts, completely ad-free and totally safe, so you can feel confident handing your phone or tablet to your little ones. Inside the app, kids will find a world of engaging content, their favorite cartoons, audiobooks and songs to spark imagination, educational games that make learning fun, and all of that to keep them entertained while supporting their development. FunTastic Plus is available on iPhones and iPads and even works offline, so whether you are on a road trip, flying, or just at home, your kids will always have something to enjoy. So if you're ready to give your kids a space that's both fun and educational, download now FunTastic Plus for free on the App Store. FunTastic Plus is a safe and ad-free educational platform for kids. Link on the description below. Parents, download now FunTastic Plus for your kids. You guys gonna have a blast, I guarantee you. FunTastic Plus, thank you so much for being a sponsor of the show. And we're back, Daniel. So I think you touched on a very important point, Tinder. And my point of view is that nowadays there's so much what's the term that I'm looking for? Possibilities, options, offer that it just feels irresistible. I mean, it depends on the person, of course, but it's
Yeah.
like it's something that never existed before. So it's just tempting you all the time. Like it's like you can order pizza on your like in a second, the same way you can find a new partner in a second. Like why wouldn't you do it? It feels very effortless when throughout the whole history of humankind that was not the case.
Yeah. I think it is tempting, especially if you come from the secular mindset, world mindset in that regard. Before I became a Christian, oh yeah, totally. I would have went on Tinder, I would have went on 23andMe, I would have been on, Ancestry.com, no matter what the product and service was in that particular regard. But until you look at it from a biblical view, it's easy to go that way. It's just like, why am I going to do all the work to have a relationship and be monogamous and all these other types of things when you don't have an eternity mindset? If it's a temporal mindset, yes, it becomes that way. And that's where the values we were talking about. Sex is God, sex is gross, sex is a gift. You go over and Tinder kind of makes it sex is a god in a sense. And it's like, well, I can easily just do a hookup, shack up, breakup, and everything else. I can order Domino's pizza. Maybe I can do Uber. I get an Uber ride, I get a girl, and I get pizza at the same time. And I just go over and do that. I mean,
At the
but
same time.
that's, yeah. And why wouldn't it be? The flesh wants, but for what we believe is that you want what the spirit wants, because that's going to last eternally. I don't want to have to carry that weight. Because the funny thing is when we go over and we do get married, or let's say cohabitate together, and then let's say we have a kid, we would never tell our 10-year-old daughter, hey, you should just go on Tinder and go shack up with a dude. If we're not going to tell our 10-year-old daughter to go to Tinder and shack up a dude, order Uber Eats and then get a ride home, why do we do that with the older women? Their future, they have fathers, they were daughters, they will be future mothers in that particular regard. So I would say yes, it is hard. It is very hard to go over and not get tempted. We all get tempted by different things. Even if we walk in Christ, we get tempted. The phone is addicting. They made it that way. They very know how to get you. There's even ads for certain things. I keep trying to stay one lane, like as I'm growing my business. And I go over, I'm like, oh no, I went on another ad. Why am I reading this again? I'm like, I don't need to go down that road. So I think it's learning to have that self-control, have that patience in that particular regard, and actually then know your values. What are you truly wanting? What is the stories you want to tell your kids and your grandkids? You don't want to be like, yeah, I think that would be embarrassing for me to go over and say like, yeah, before I met your mom, I did some Uber shack ups before I met your mom. You could usually don't even tell those embarrassing. You wouldn't tell that. You wouldn't want to know your kids do this. So what are you wanting to tell your next generation and whatnot in that particular regard? You might not think of it right now. Some of the audience that might be listening could be 18 to 25, 25 to 35, and they're like, I'm not thinking about that. Would you want to hear that from your grandmother? Would you want to hear that from your mom? That would be weird if mom says, like, let me tell you my sexual escapades I had before I met dad. Whoo! That's a weird one, right? So, and it's like we didn't have Uber, we had carriage. Right? It's like, so I think it's like it's the mindset. But yes, I consider it probably really daunting, and it makes it a lot easier for dating because guys are usually the vulnerable one. It is relationally gut-wrenching for a guy to go over and ask a girl out, and then she probably says hell no. My daughters have done that 3 times already. Like I have like teen daughters. I have two 15-year-olds and a 17-year-old. And my daughter's like, oh, I've had 3 guys like already crushed. I said, did you even know their name? Like, I don't even know their name. I'm like, could you at least learn their name before you go crush their soul? I mean, so it's hard enough. So I think that's why the younger men are going towards the Tinder thing and everything else and swiping towards there because now it's harder. It's socially harder. You have the pandemic that happened with COVID and it affect the world differently. I don't know much as in Europe and the other countries how it's affected, but the United States, we kind of just do task and we really don't connect. Even in churches, we tend to go to church and we go to the events and everything else, but we're truly not connecting and fellowshipping. So how did the men go over and find the future Mrs. whatever your last name is? So I could see the temptation in that particular regard. But who do you really want to find? Who do you really want to cultivate? Who do you want to say that your wife was when you're sharing those stories or your husband was when you go into those stories? Where do you see your narrative? Where do you see your story? I think that's the question to ask when we're going on those websites. What is your story wanting to be? And that's in anything, going from dating to business or whatever. What do you want your stories to be? Because unfortunately, we now have a past and it's all tracked. Every post we do, every click we go over and do, and one day someone's going to download your Facebook or your Tinder or your TikTok, and someone's going to print it out, and they're going to show that story. Are you going to be good for that story? Are you going to be bad for that story? You willing to take the hits for that story? I know there's some things in my life that's not even dating wise I'm kind of ashamed of. I recently realized I made a t-shirt 6 months ago. I was about to put it on again. I'm ashamed of the shirt.
Why?
I'm like,
What's wrong with the
because
shirt?
the shirt didn't have long-term thinking. So I had a fun experience in the moment, got inspired. I talked to the person to make the shirt. They said they liked it, but without context of the story, the shirt can be offensive and rude. And I decided, I'm like, after yesterday, I'm like, man, I wish I could take that out of my story. It was cool 6 months ago when I built it. But now I'm like, nobody has context of it. It's kind of like one of those inside jokes that you make a t-shirt or make something that goes further and you don't think of who you're really serving with. So that's a small part that can be easily digitally erased from my story. I won't delete it, but the other parts, like we're talking about the Tinder stories and the other type of stories, are you going to be proud of those moments when you go over and have kids and grandkids? Someone goes over and asks us, like, how'd you meet your spouse? What's the legacy of your marriage? What's the legacy of that? How'd your kids go and get birthed? I'm like, oh, it was a Tinder date. I got pizza, I got an Uber, I did a Tinder date, and this is kid number A or kid number B. They're all image bearers of God, and I'm glad that they're born. But I pray that we have less of those stories. I pray that I see less of those stories each and every day. I would love to go and see a story that we met out, we did something weird, we went on in public, we met at a bar, or we met at a church, or we met at a social event, and then we connected, or we met through Tinder and we actually had a real date, utilize the technology to go over and to connect. I'm like, oh, I met at this volunteer event. I would love to hear more stories like that. So it's hard, it's difficult, but I think it's possible in 2026 to go over and to meet Mr. and Mrs. Right without going over and doing the Tinder swipe, order pizza, and get an Uber.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So this brings me to my next question because uh, you need to find someone of the right value, not the right values, but the values that match your values. Let's put it that way. And how do you do that then? If going on Tinder dates to begin with, it's already against your values.
Well, if that depends on your values and my values. So I mean, I would still go on a Tinder date, just not the way the Tinder dates are like culturally thing. I'm not going to shack up. So for me, I just if my wife died, let's just play theoretical. My wife dies, and 6 to 12 months later, I feel God says you can go over and date again. And now I have to go figure out a world in the digital space to go over to date. I first have to know my value set. So I'm in 2027 and I have to figure out where are my values at right now. I'm going to be 46 years old. I'm an American male. I'm military. I've been a Christian for 20 years. What am I going to say is that first picture on that Tinder date in that particular card? I'm going to point out point blank. For me personally, I'll be like, if I'm going to use Tinder to go over and date, I'm like, I am a covenantal Christian. I go over and believe in marriages for life. I'm unfortunately a widow. I have 4 adult kids, and I like X, Y, and Z, and I'm looking for a woman that wants to righteously walk in X, Y, and Z. Most women are not going to swipe on my profile, even if I have the sexy face of a beast. So I think that's the first thing is we should be okay if we're going to use those sources to put out our true selves in that profile. That's number one. And number two is you have to have strong convictions not to compromise those convictions. And it's hard. The closer you get in proximity, the more dates you have, the more hours you have. They say typically about 150 hours in proximity goes from I to we. Not like in the sense psychologically, but at least like physiologically. You are really tempted the more hours. And me and my wife were going out between 2 to 6 hours a day almost every single day when we were dating in 2006. And we almost walked into full-blown out sex just as Christians. It's just as tempting Christians and non-Christians. Temptation's there. God means for us to come together as man and woman. It's just a natural biological thing. And I almost stumbled fully into that. And the Lord convicted me and said that, like, if you want to keep on this path or you want to surely die. And I'm like, okay, God, I'm convicted. I'm done with this. What do I need to do? Get married or leave her? And we got married 18 hours later in that particular guard. So if I had to do it again in 2027, I'd make sure I have fellow like-minded people, brothers and sisters, more likely brothers to keep me accountable because sisters are going to be hot and I'm not going to stay accountable. So I need brothers to keep me accountable to my values. So I got to have that brothers in arms. We actually do a brothers in arms study. We have an alpha group right now. We hope to grow other Bravo and Charlie groups. This is like subgroups. And we come together with like values, and this is where we want to be. We have one guy that's getting married in a few weeks. We have a guy that's 25 that's single and navigating the world and everything else. And we connect together and have those value people together because the people, your 5 closest people are going to be the values that you sustain and maintain. So if you're putting yourself out there in the digital world, I need to have those physical/digital battle buddies in there because the flesh is weak. The spirit is strong. But certain days the flesh goes over and wins. So I would put that in that battlefront too. And then I wouldn't go on private dates per se, other than the first couple times. I'm like, first couple dates, I'd probably get to know you initially and be like, hey, I want you to now come hang out with my friends and hang out with my church community and everything else. I want you to holistically get to know me. And when we both, from my prayer closet to your separate prayer closet, because we're not married, so then we come together and get married. And I would never do a long engagement because that's just temptation. So I'd be like, and I told my wife, even when we were dating, I said, when I go over and date, I go date to go over and be married. I'm not pushing along for this long thing. So when she told me she'd be willing to wait for me 5 years when I was in the midst of saying if I'm going to date at all, I knew I had to pray and see if she was the right one. And then I got pastoral counsel and she got pastoral counsel and we did that. So if I had to do it again, I'd just add the digital front there and I would just tell what exactly who I am and be transparent with them so they know. So then you start finding the right value ones and then you're gonna have to compare notes and ask deep questions during those dates. What's your favorite color? That's not deep. What do you believe in? What is your values in sex? Are you pre-marital sex? Are you post-marital sex? Everything that's up, I'm gonna get weird on you in that date. And they'll probably leave me in like 12 seconds. So I probably won't have to pay only for an appetizer. But I will get to know who those people are. So even whatever weird values are, you could be like, hey, I'm only like, I know some women that I knew and I thought I was aligned earlier in dating. And then she's like, I want to stay in Los Angeles for the rest of my life. I said, I believe I'm doing military ministry for the rest of my life. All right. That's a major value for me. That's not a major value for you. I cut it off. I'm like, or go over and be like, oh, I like sometimes even people on how their preferences of dating. I would never date a white man. Okay. I'm not changing my skin to black. So I'm kind of cut off. I get that. Right? That's your preference. So, but the values are the things that go over and stick true and true in that particular regard. So I would say, put your values out there if you're going to use Tinder or anything else. Be bold to ask the deep questions. Go over and to tell people where you really want to be in that particular regard. You'll weird them out real quick. And if it's a woman or man that's supposed to be with you, they're going to be attracted to the weirdness. So if they are attracted to your weirdness, most likely they are closer to who you're supposed to be with for the rest of your life.
That's really smart. You're in a way filtering all quote unquote bad candidates that are not a match for you from the get go. I've had some Tinder dates that went a little further than just a couple of dates with random chicks that I let's say vetted. Let's say I did not vet it, just and you get entangled, right? And you start caring for the person, but it's just not a good match. It's a catastrophe. And I heard from people older than me, they say that as the older you get in life, relationships become more and more like business transactions than just fantasy and love and you know what I'm talking about, and we're gonna travel the world and you're the love of my life. Like those things kind of fade out as you grow older because it just doesn't work. It much more like a business transaction. It's much more like how like you mentioned the sex, like you get weird, you ask those weird questions, let's put it that way, to make sure that you're compatible because at the end of the day that's what matters the most, right? Otherwise, you're just gonna have the short term fun, which again, it's fun, but it's short term, and it's over, and then you're empty again. It's like, is that what you want for your life? It might be fun in your 20s, but what after? What about after that? You know?
Yeah. So there's a formula that a psychologist uses. I can't remember the psychologist's name. I just went through the class. It's intimacy, passion, and commitment. So when you have all those three things, that's what lasts in a long-term relationship. Because bodies are going to age and you're not going to be able to do as much fun stuff as you get into your 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. Your hip goes out, you lost a knee, you have jaundice in places you never thought you were going to get it, and you go over and you're like, that was great for a season in that particular regard. But if you have all those three elements, you can still be overall marital satisfied and intimately satisfied even without having it on the regular. Because then you add kids and job and everything else, life circumstances, sometimes travel. In that particular regard, in my career, I've deployed 4 times. I've been to European deployments, I've been to Asian deployments, I've been Middle East deployments. And if you only have just the physical,
Yeah.
what do you do when you can't have the physical for 4 to 6 months? You know, and a lot of our soldiers struggle with that, and sometimes their spouses go over and struggle with that. And when they don't root it, in our opinion, God in there and have the intimacy, passion, and commitment, which God wants us to have all three, when you can't have one, you have the other two sustaining you, and then you have God overall sustaining you as a couple in that particular regard. So I think it's more of a, not a business transaction, but it's a holistic life transaction. Because there's going to be moments and seasons you're not going to be able to do anything. When I broke my back in 2017, I wasn't having physical intimacy. I was having a lot of physical pain. So, I mean, if it was based on that, like 4 deployments and breaking my back and learning how to walk again, my wife should have left me like, nope, you haven't had any intimacy in 3 months. It's time to go. And I'm like, oh, I can't even walk to catch up with you. I'm like, so I think it should be looked at as a holistic thing. What are you looking for? Because sometimes delayed gratification is better. And that's why we personally believe if you wait until marriage, the passion and commitment comes, and now the intimacy. And again, you can figure everything else out and you can quote unquote catch up. Oh, we didn't have sex for 6 months before we got married. Well, we're every day now. We're caught up. And then some. I mean, it's like you can easily go over, and you can't catch up on sleep, you can't catch up on time, but intimacy, I think you sure can.
um, then you mentioned that in 2014 that there was a turning point in your marriage, right? So that's when you decide to surrender to God. That's what happened.
I threatened divorce that day. I was totally wiped. So I was having a title of Christian, but not living it out. I was going through the cycle of abuse. I took all the junk from my parents' divorce, my brother's death, and me getting sexually molested for about 8 years. And I took all that junk and I hoarded it inside. Jesus came in my life, but Jesus wasn't ruling over my whole life. I get married and I'm kind of living the Christianese thing, like trying to do the practices of it, but I'm living in all this brokenness and junk, the mess, the mental, the emotional, the social, the spiritual, sexual. And I kept going over and saying, like, all right, stress, tension's going to come up. It's going to build. I'm going to explode. I'm going to hurt my wife. Then I'm going to realize I hurt my wife. Then I'm going to try to repair with sex, chocolates, words of affirmation, anything I can do to patch the wounds, only short term patching, and then go through that cycle again. So I was doing that for 7 years while being military and everything else. And then I got out of the military, went through a lot of jobs. I won't get into the numbers, but a lot of jobs. And I was in another job and I thought it was going to be stable. And this was around June of 2014. And then I get told that day, they told me at work, I get into work and they're like, hey, just so you know, we're getting really low on computers because I did IT at the time. And they're like, this 6-month job is going to be 6 weeks and we're already 5 weeks in. Then my wife calls me. I'm stressed out about the job. And then she brings up other stuff. It triggers. And then I explode and I threaten divorce on her birthday, June 1st of 2014. So I'm not just schmuck. I'm big schmuck. And whatever word you want to fill in the blank in that particular regard. And so I'm like, I didn't get convicted first by God. I got convicted by man. So I'm on my phone, the older edition, and I'm swiping to figure out how much divorce costs in Washington state. I can't afford divorce, so I feel financially convicted, not spiritually, not emotionally, not psychologically, anything else. I can't afford divorce. I need to go figure it out. I go home, and then my wife brings the good wrath of God in our marriage and spiritually kicks me, where, and tells me of all the stuff I've done and everything else. And I needed that because sometimes with being a high functional autistic, we do a lot of things and we don't realize what we do. It's kind of like a whole filter and mask of the world. So we have to really learn on how to be in the neurotypical world compared to the rest of the divergent. So I then see all that stuff. The pieces finally come together. All the puzzle pieces are snapping in my mind as she's spiritually challenging me on this, on all the stuff I've done. And that was the spiritual, we're kicking that I got during that day. And that's where the Lord taught me how to deal with my mess. And now throughout recent years, how to surrender that mess, because I can't go back and go repair that damage I did to her, and I can't repair the damage that was done to me by all the things I mentioned prior. But I give that to God and know that he was in there in the midst of it all, loving on me, caring for me, redeeming me, going over and sanctifying me in that particular regard, and being there as a friend. And I wasn't processing that. So that's what that journey was all about, is to go over and to do that. So that's what transformed our marriage, and it's not just the sexual part that transformed. I'm mentally, emotionally, socially, spiritually, and sexually attracted to my wife. I read her book last night. I was crying because I know the trauma that she went back into the past, and I'm more attracted to her in all those ways because I get to know her heart. I get to know her soul. And she shares that to the community to help them to go over and grow and surrender in that particular regard. So that's where it changes and transforms. It gets past infatuation, it gets past the passion, it gets past the commitment. It all comes together, and now is a beautiful tapestry of what our marriage is. And now we can go share that in the overflow, not in the cup that's just left and be like, hey, I got like only this much left. Let's pour into your life. Well, now mine sucks. Let's go with there. So that's why I can share because of that, because God has gone over and healed, redeemed, and restored in that particular regard. Are we still going over and still be growing and changing? Of course. We won't be totally transformed and change until we get to heaven. There's a process in scripture, really simple. Salvation is when you get Jesus. Sanctification is the here and now. We have a conversation, we have a bad blowout, and I'm learning, I'm like, hey, I need to have more self-control in the conversation, and God shapes and molds me. Sanctification. Glorification is when you're with him and everything is healed and the relationship's fully restored. We are in between the dashes right now. We are in the sanctification process. So me and my wife are not perfect, but the thing is God is perfecting inside us in any person that is of Jesus, and we have to allow it each and every day between the dashes. So that is the rough story of what happened in 2014.
Got it. Wow. Man, your wife sounds wonderful. I do not imagine a relationship where one person threats to end up things and or have a divorce and don't go through with it. Like if I have a girl who threats me with that, it's like, okay, I'm done. Get out of here, you know. But she had the patience. She had all the I don't know the word I'm looking for to understand what is going on and have and talk with you and give you a chance. That's wonderful.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
would say spiritual fortitude would be
Spiritual
one word.
fortitude.
And
Yeah.
also, and another word would just be she was sanctified in him. Because
Yeah.
if we go in our flesh, we're just going to do that. It's like business relationship. You went over and took $10 out of my piggy bank. I'm done with you. That's it. We break up by so many different things in this world, and that particular regard doesn't matter if it's business, relationally, kids, parents, all that type of stuff. Yeah, she had to have a supernatural gift from the Holy Spirit, which is the third part of the God Trinity in the Bible, to have that. Because if you don't, you're just like, what flesh says? Flesh says, stop it. And that's what we do. Or if the flesh says, it's good, it's good. And then if it's bad, it's bad. And sometimes we're so messed up that we like, this is really bad, but I keep going back to this. That's when we realize we're really messed up, because we do the things that we shouldn't do, and the things we ought to do, we not do.
Yeah.
So it's so yeah, she had to have something outside of herself. And that's where I could see God in her each and every day, is like, in that particular regard. And now she gets to see God in me as he shapes me to go over into love. So yeah, it's a beautiful story that God brought together, but it was through the mess. It wasn't just something like painted on a tapestry. I won't change anything, but I don't want anybody else going through any of that. Our heart and our goal is for you not to get to that point, to that deep part of the mess. We want you to avoid the mess, get out of the mess, minimize the mess, allow God to clear the mess in that particular regard. In the earlier you surrender, the less you have to deal with in that particular regard.
Mm-hmm.
The more you deal with it, the more mess you have. I'm like, I have 30-something years of mess to go over and to work through. Christ has worked through a lot of it. But when you're working with humans, it takes a long time. So, like I said, I believe my wife is Christ and Michelle Faust, in a sense, that God imbues inside her, because you should have left me a long time ago. This face ain't that pretty.
Man, I'm so grateful for this conversation, Daniel. Spiritual fortitude, that's not something that I have ever questioned or tried to learn about, or when it comes to dating, right? Never. And it sounds to be fundamental.
I think it is,
Yeah.
because it's huge, because you go over and you're dating someone else's daughter or son every time you're dating.
Yeah.
And they carry that peace with them. I've been fortunate and blessed. I only really dated one person, which was my wife. I went on a couple dates before I met her, and I'm glad that they failed epically. I had this one girl that was in tech school, and I wasn't a Christian then, and we kind of sort of hung out and talked and everything else, and then she moved to another state, and then she kind of didn't answer the phone for a long time. And I'm a very forthright guy, so I know how to do stuff in the IT world. So I figured out another way to communicate with her. So I found that way, and I got on the phone, and like, long time no talk. I said, yeah, it's been 3 months. Oh, I dating somebody, I slept with them, and now I'm pregnant. Woo!
3
Thank the Lord
months.
that, yep. So I thank the Lord that he went over and kept me from getting there, because naturally my flesh would have been like, oh, you like me, you gave me attention, whoop, close off, that's it. I would have done that like in my flesh real quick, because I was an emotional whore. That's what I was, non-Christian. Any girl that gave me attention, I'm like, you love me? It was so bad. Like when I first got to South Carolina, this is before I became a Christian, that I hung out with these Christian groups because they were cool people. So they like, hey, you want to go out to this bonfire? I'm like, I get to go to a bonfire? Heck yeah. I don't have to drive, even better. So I'm the passenger in the car. I get ridden to this bonfire. We go over and they're like, hey, both guys knew the girl. I didn't know the girl. And she goes over and she hugs me first, like, hey, how you doing? I don't know her from Sunday. And I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, she loves me. And then she hugs another dude. And I'm like, and then she hugs another dude. And I said, what the hell? And I'm like, I told the guy next to me, I said, what the hell is going on? And he said, what are you talking about? I said, she just hugged me. She hugged you and she hugged another. It's like, oh, we're in the South. They hug everybody. I said, I'm going to hate this state. I was that emotionally messed up that any girl that gave me attention, I'm thinking like, oh, you think I'm hot. Like, so it was only because of him to go over and to change who I am, because that was me pre-Christian. I'm like, any girl would give me attention. I'd be like, I'm going to marry you. I'm like, what?
Don't go to France, man. They kiss everyone there, even the man. They are all kissing each other.
I then got stationed in Germany for 2 years. So I lived in 18 Hillstrasse in Spangalum. I lived there, and then I lived in the Middle East for a while, and then I lived in Korea. So I got to learn culturally, but that was like my first Southern cultural experience. And then I went from the South to Eastern Europe, and then I went to Asia, and then I went to the Middle East and all those places. So I've learned that now. I really had to learn. I'm like, everybody kisses everybody. I just, I had to learn that the hard way. And I'm glad I learned it in the South, because I couldn't imagine if I went to Europe and then be like, they're like, hey, how you doing? I'm like, every woman's hot and she's touching me. Why? Like, and I'm like, nobody wants to be with me, but they keep touching me.
Oh, wow. Oh, man. Then, so I have one before we start closing the show, I have one more question. Would you say that marriage is for everyone? So, yeah, is marriage for everyone? And do you think everyone should get married?
I think most people, if they're planning to be with somebody, yeah. But if they really know that God's called them not to be married, then no. You have to figure out your own individual walk.
Okay.
So there's a right time and right season. If you're doing it out of desperation, it's not to get married. If you're just doing it to get the sex, it's not worth it. It's got to be life in view. It doesn't matter. Most cultures, even if you get married, there's not just spiritual consequences, there's legal consequences, there's contractual consequences. So I would say take it and bathe it in prayer, take it and bathe it in wisdom, talk to the people that are maybe older and wiser than you to go get that advice. I wouldn't just go rush into it, but I'd say that's the way God's covenantal bonding of relationships are supposed to be marriage. Some cultures actually take it once you have sex, that's copulation, which is technically marriage in that particular regard. So I would just say it definitely needs to be bathed in prayer, wisdom, thought. Just don't think with the downstairs, think with the upstairs, because when you just think with downstairs, you'll make some quick and dumb decisions. When you think with both, when for the men, when the blood flow gets back here, that's when you should be thinking. Because especially when you're attracted, you're really, when you're a dude and you're infatuated with a woman, you very much hard to not think with just the downstairs. So you got to sometimes walk away. I remember when I was dating my wife, I was like, it got so bad that I started having like physiological problems and pain, because I was like, okay, I can't be with you this many hours in the day and not doing anything. So because it was like all the blood flow was going down there and I'm still attracted and everything else. And I'm like, nope, I need to go home. I need to go home because my body is hurting. And my wife thought it was funny. The technical term, I guess, well, it's a slang term, but the slang American term is called blue balls.
Yeah.
It's when your genitalia has so much blood there so long and you're just like, it ain't going away. And I'm like, all right, this date's got to be over. I'm going home. I'm icing myself and walking away. I mean, so you got to think marriage when you're out, if you're going to marry somebody outside that situation, because if you're always just with them, you're going to be thinking with downstairs and not upstairs. And you need to think with both, because God gave us a brain and a heart before anything else. Even when everything was formed in the womb and you didn't get your genitalia first, that's usually not formed until like 4 or 5 months in. You got formed with your heart and your brain first before that. So get some time away, and if you're going to go over and do that. And you have to realistically look at it. That's why the friendships, the relationships, the hanging out in groups, going over and getting parents' involvement, if your culture allows you parents' blessing, that's a good thing. Not saying it's always a great thing. In my marriage relationship, my parents and my wife's parents wouldn't have blessed anything. I mean, I could have brought home Tom Brady's ex-wife, and millions of dollars and whatever, and they might not have blessed it. And then my father-in-law blessed our wedding, and he didn't even know what he was talking about 15 minutes later. So I'm like, so you got to do it in wise discernment in that particular regard. So I'd say overall that yes, I think marriage is for the majority, but make sure you pray about it and make sure, because it's not just it's not a quick decision. It carries a lot of weight. And when it, especially looking at it, there's legacy impact in that particular regard. So you want to know, like, if she's old and wrinkly and can't do anything, or he's just like old and crippled and can't do anything, do I want to be with this person? Do I see that in there? And do I see, if you're looking at it from a God perspective, are you seeing God inside of him or her so you can have that triune relationship? That's what I would say. It's not a yes or no. So it's relational. Every those types of questions should always be relational. I would never tell somebody, like, you just need to get married, dude. I would have to know the situation.
Beautiful. Yeah, and I would also include, since I learned with you today, to question if this person has any type of spiritual fortitude, right? That's something to consider. That I never thought about it before, so that was really cool. Um,
Cool.
Daniel, thank you so much, man. What a wonderful conversation. Do you have any final remarks? Do you have any links that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I would say that learning to go over and surrender your mess is going to carry your life into the best. That's what I would say is my final statement. If you like what we're going over and talking about, and we primarily support military veterans, first responders. So if a patriot contacts us or an international client, just so you know, you're in a priority rack and stack. But like, if you wanted consultation from us, just so you know, our veterans and first responders get first dibs. But if you do contact us, go to Linktree/warhero to superhero. All our contact information, all our websites, all the books that we have coming out, podcasts, speaking events, music, all those things can be found there. So if you want to connect with us, just do it that way. So Linktree/warhero, the number 2 superhero. And that's how you can stay connected with all of us in one spot. If worst case scenario, that's a website that's too long, I can't remember all that stuff, then Daniel Faust, Google me, and then you should find the rest. That's the nice part about SEO, is that my name is strong enough there now to go find Daniel Faust. Not the Wiccan guy that wrote magic books, the veteran guy. Because there's a guy that wrote like 8 magic books back in the day, and there's an old football player in the NFL. I'm not that. If I'm the NFL player, I should be paying to be his sponsor at Brewcast.
Oh yeah,
See, that's probably the guy right there. Yep, that's the guy right there.
Doesn't look like anything like you.
That's what I'm saying. That's why you have to go over and look for the military one. So Daniel Faust, probably type in War Hero to Superhero, and that's where you're going to find it. Because if you just do Daniel Faust, that's the guy that writes all the Wiccan books. Then, yeah, that should be close enough. Whoop.
Oh yeah, I saw those on your Instagram.
There you go. Yeah. There you go. Yeah. So, yep, we're still growing our SEO. So that's why I said Linktree/warhero to superhero. So as we go, we'll grow more.
Thank you so much, Daniel. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, it was a pleasure too. Thanks for the time. Thanks for the interesting questions.
All right, everyone, don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. See you next time. Bye-bye. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today. If it's your first time watching the show, make sure to like and subscribe. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please rank the show 5 stars. This will ensure that the podcast is recommended to even more people and allow me to keep doing what I love. Check out now the Brewcast store, Explore store, filled with awesome goodies from hoodies to t-shirts to mugs. We've got you covered. Stay in style with Brewcast. Embrace the shock, set the trend. Buy now at brew-cast.com/store. Again, that's brew-cast.com/store. Link on the description below. Be a Brewcast model and get free stuff. We'd love to see how you and your loved ones enjoy Brewcast. Snap a picture of yourself, your family, your friends, or even your pets wearing Brewcast merch, or watching an episode of the show, and send it to us and become part of Brewcast. We will feature you and your pictures at the end of every episode, just like the ones you're seeing on the screen right now. You can upload your pictures at brew-cast.com/contact or tag us on social media. Alright everyone, it has been a pleasure. Thank you so much and see you next time. Bye bye.